Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest introduced to you now. Roxana Soetebeer struggled with her health and weight issues since her mid-20s. Her health issues eventually led her to discover the world of low-carbohydrate nutrition, and her results have been fantastic. She has been on a ketogenic diet since October of 2019. When she started receiving private messages from the members of her Facebook group seeking advice, she decided to create a coaching business. She has been attending low-carb events, created that Facebook group, and has worked to get certified to coach her clients. Currently, Roxana is a certified metabolic health practitioner, a certified meta community manager, a certified nutrition network low-carb healthy fat advisor, a certified nutrition network coach practitioner, and is currently in training for her primal health coach certification. Wow, that's awesome. Roxana lives with her husband and two of her three sons, who are ages 18, 20, and 23, in Canada, after she and her husband moved from Germany about 24 years ago. You can find her on Twitter or X at rev_insulin_res, on Facebook at Reversing Insulin Resistance, or on her two websites at www.reversing-insulin-resistance and at www.kendo-keto.com. You can also subscribe to her, on her brand new YouTube channel. Roxana, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Hey.
It's such an honor to host you. This has been a long time coming. I met you for the first time at Low Carb Denver 2023. I got to see you again in San Diego at the Metabolic Health Symposium. Isn't it just amazing to attend some of these conferences and meet some of the people we consider our heroes in the space?
Absolutely. Talking to them like live, like being able to touch them is amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get to it in your personal story, but you originally found this entire world through the work of Dr. Stephen Phinney. What was it like to actually meet him for the first time and actually thank him for the information that he was giving you?
So that was quite emotional because I had gone to a few conferences and he was never there. And then he was going to be at one, and I was quite emotional. So I stood, someone else was talking to him, and it took like forever. I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes. But my emotion was building up because Stephen Phinney, he's the guy I really owe my life to, because he switched my mind. He gave me the hope I needed at that moment. And so the other guy was talking to him, and then I was already with tears up to here. And then I talked to him, and then I was like so emotional. And then as I told him what had happened and how he helped me, he got emotional too. And then we both got into a picture, and I had like a red nose, he had red eyes, and it was just awesome. But later we got more pictures, so all was good. But I'm glad that I could tell him and let him know how he influenced my life, the lives of my families, and the lives of people who follow me and who I can help in my group and so on. So it has a cascading effect. I'm just in awe of what he does.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think these people, the people that we call our heroes in this space, have probably heard the same story hundreds, thousands of times, different people coming up and thanking them, not only for their own lives, but those ripple effects like you described. And I don't think they ever get used to hearing it also. Like, they always seem so grateful. They always still get emotional. Like, the same thing happens with Dr. Ken Berry or Dr. Sean Baker. You see these lines of people waiting just to like say hi, shake their hand, give them a hug, take a picture. And they even those people just seem like they're so grateful to hear the same stories of just everyday people. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder how they sleep, but for good reasons. So they hear the stories. I get some feedback like that too. Not as often, obviously, but I get it too. And when I then go to sleep, then I replay that feedback in my mind, and I think, oh, it's so good. And then obviously I can't go to sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah. They save lives, so
amazing.
They're my heroes.
Yeah, mine too. That's super cool. Well, since we've already kind of skipped ahead with your story, I also want to skip ahead to another really good part of your story. Recently, you were featured on the Fabulously Keto podcast with Jackie Fletcher. I was featured on her show as well, maybe like a week or two before you were. And on that show, you were describing some of the food that you eat day to day. And I really wanted to ask you about it. It sounded like are you taking like fatty beef basically and putting it in the air fryer until it kind of turns into like a more dried, almost like a, not quite jerky, but that kind of consistency?
No, actually, my plan was to make beef jerky. So we take some fatty roast. Then my husband cuts it into slices and then into strips, and we put them into a smoker.
Smoker.
And I always I shied away from the smoker because I thought it was like so difficult with the pellets and getting it going and everything. But this is a digital smoker, so it plugs into an outlet, and then it has a little bit of like cherry wood tree or something chips inside, and they smoke. So the heat comes from the outlet, and the smoke comes from those wood chips. It tastes amazing. We just made another batch today. It's in there for 4 hours, and then I put some in the fridge and then some in the freezer. They make excellent. It makes excellent travel food, and it tastes good.
Wow. Do you do any kind of like seasoning with the beef? Like, do you marinate the beef?
I actually, we wanted to do that. We forgot again. My husband just put salt over it, plenty of salt, but no, nothing else. I don't want to. I'm on the lion diet. It's a little modified, so I'm also having butter and coffee, but it's more than a carnivore diet. It's much tighter.
Yeah.
And that doesn't allow any of the seasonings, just salt.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, this is purely selfish. I have the same smoker in my backyard, so I'm getting information for myself. So I love this. I've actually done beef jerky before, fatty beef. I think I had the strips a little bit too thick. I maybe needed to do them a little bit more thin so they would dry out a little bit more. So that sounds delicious. The other food that you talked about was oxtail. You were cooking down oxtail into this broth. It sounds like this creamy, like brothy treat. Like what are you doing there?
Yeah. So I've never. I'm a really bad cook. But I remember from my childhood eating oxtail soup. So I had just had this thing. I should try it. And then we got some from the butcher, and all I did was brown it from each side, and then I added water. And it was sort of like a green pan, like this height. Then I added water to just cover it, and plenty of salt, of course. And then I cooked that in the oven for like 2-3 hours at 350. And it just turned out so good, so delicious. I took all the meat off. And then for the broth, I don't know why, but I put some of the meat into a blender with the broth. And it turned out as this really good gravy. I never knew how to make gravy on keto. I can't use almond flour, coconut flour. Nothing really makes it creamy, other than there's one thing, but it's between creamy and being slimy. It's just 1/2 teaspoon too much. So nothing really worked, and that actually makes delicious gravy.
That sounds so good. I really wanted to get you on recording.
Oxtail in the freezer. It is so good, and really, it's just salt. It's nothing else.
Wow.
Well, I do add a little lemon powder so that as an acid, so that I get everything from the bones.
Yeah, so that helps extract some of the nutrients from the bones. Correct? Like you need lemon or another acid, like apple cider vinegar or something.
Exactly. And I just like lemon better. It also adds a little more taste to it.
Oh, amazing. My wife just celebrated her 30th birthday and she wanted steak for her birthday. And we also did the bone marrow where you roast the bones and the marrow's inside and you take the bone marrow out and spread it on the steak. And it's so delicious and so rich. And I see your background. I see the colors changing on the trees back there. You and I were talking offline about how kind of this time of year start to notice that our energy is a little bit kind of slowing down a little bit, want a little bit more sleep or like like richer foods. And just walking around today and seeing my neighborhood and all my trees changing and all the leaves coming to the ground and hearing you describe that broth, I was like, oh, that sounds so delicious this time of year. So thank you again for skipping ahead and telling us about your food and making me very hungry. Let's go back and talk about your story. First of all, I'd love to know what it was like to grow up in Germany and what the transition was like to move to North America.
So in Germany, I grew up in a big city in Hamburg, and it was just normal life. I have 3 siblings, and until my early 20s, I was always healthy. So when I did go to the doctor, where you have to check the diseases that you have, I could leave them all unchecked. I never had anything. And I was also very active. I did Taekwondo, and in sports, 1 year I actually did 2 courses at the same time because I could.
Wow.
I loved sports. I just loved the activity. And then that kind of changed when I got into my mid-20s. I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which now turns out was a misdiagnosis. It was inflammatory arthritis, but the symptoms are very similar, so that they missed it. The treatment was probably, or would have been similar too, but I was put on stronger medications, on Imuran. And, first on cortisone and a few others, but then on Imuran, and the Imuran was the one that really did my liver in, because they put me on the on this high dose. In the beginning, you have a very high dose, and then you taper down to a maintenance dose, and they forgot. So there we are. 15 years later.
Yeah, minor detail
I asked,
there.
Well, now that I lost my weight, can I taper down my dose? And they said, like, oops. And you never want to hear your doctor say oops. So, yeah. But the moving to Canada, the diagnosis wasn't established then. So I moved to Canada, and I was diagnosed here in Canada.
Mm. Wow. So that's kind of when you first started noticing these problems. Did you have any side effects from the medications?
Well, from the cortisone, yes, I did gain a lot of weight. And from the Imuran, I think it was just not healthy for my body. I mean, it suppresses the immune system. And then at a dose, which is usually given to kidney transplant recipients.
Wow.
So it was that high of a dose, 15 years. Yeah. Yes, I did have side effects. I also would blame those medications on me, like being fatigued, being tired, and just not thriving as I should have.
Mm. Wow. Well, the weight gain, I mean, that's easy. Just lose weight. It's just that simple, right?
Right. Move more, eat less, right? I hate that. And the thing was, it really puts all the blame on me. I'm eating. I won't say that I was the perfect patient. I did eat candy and junk and all that stuff, but mostly every time I tried to lose weight, I really stuck with the program, and then I just got hungrier and hungrier. And then these voices like, if you deprive yourself, you're going to fall off the wagon. If you restrict yourself, you're going to develop an eating disorder. If you do this, and then, well, when I get hungrier and hungrier, then those voices or people saying things to me, they make more sense, right? So I thought, okay, so I lost 30 pounds now, so I'm going to treat myself with a carrot cake with that frosting that's really good. And once I ate that, that's when I fell off the wagon. I couldn't go back on. And so that's my sugar addiction. People often say sugar addiction isn't real. I know it is real.
Yeah. I totally agree. I don't know what you want to call whatever I have, if it qualifies exactly as sugar addiction or not, but I know that if I have some, I will have a lot. And I don't know how to stop myself. And so I have to kind of be an abstainer as well, which sucks. You and I were talking about it offline. I would love to have a piece of carrot cake. That sounds really good. I used to love carrot cake. Like all of it sounds great. I know that if I have a little, I can't stop and I will have more and more and more to the point that like my brain just spins in anxiety. So yeah, have to avoid it. Now, I've got a client I've been working with for many years. He's overweight. He's looking to get a procedure done, looking to get a joint replaced. He's now had two separate doctors tell him that he needs to lose weight. And first of all, he's like, okay, like, thanks. That is like not the first time I've had
Obvious.
that thought. Oh, like, good to know. Thanks. Like, great. Like, I had no idea I need to lose weight. And secondly, he'll say like, okay, fine. How would you suggest that I lose weight? And it's the same thing. It's like, well, you need to exercise. Dude is exercising 5 days a week. He's playing golf every single day. You need to watch what you eat. Like, you're kidding. That's what you need to do. Like, it's so frustrating. And he feels the exact same way, that these doctors are asking him these questions. He's to blame for all these problems and they don't have good answers about how to even accomplish what they're telling him to do. It's super frustrating.
Doctors just don't know. And it's probably most evident when you look at doctors and you see that most of them are overweight too. And you would think, can't they follow the advice they're dishing out? And apparently they can't. It's because it's bad advice. It's not how it works. Losing weight is not about how much we eat. It's about what we eat and how often we eat.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You look at people like Dr. Trode, Dr. Brian Lenskis, you look at people like Dr. Philip Ovadia, they all had to arrive at the same place where we all are in this low carbohydrate space because they themselves were struggling with their weight and they didn't know what to do. Like Dr. Trode's wife telling him like, yo, you should lose weight. And him thinking like, I'm a doctor, I should know how to do this. And realizing like, wait a second, I really don't know how to do this for myself. How can I teach my patients how to do this as well? It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, I find the same thing.
Yeah. So your health got worse. It got a lot worse, I would say, before you kind of hit rock bottom. Can you continue telling us about that journey and how your health continued to deteriorate?
So first was the rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis, which was inflammatory arthritis. Then, and I don't know exactly when that was, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto. That's an autoimmune disease. It's when the thyroid is attacked and it can't produce enough thyroid hormones anymore. Then I was put on statins, and I'm not sure whether it was first. Yeah, it was first the statins. Then I developed type 2 diabetes, and it progressed pretty quickly. So this is over the span of about 25 years. And then I was diagnosed with NASH, and that sounds horrible. It is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which means it's a fatty liver that's also inflamed. It's one step short of cirrhosis. Wow. So I was there like weighing over 300 pounds, full-blown type 2 diabetes, Hashimoto. I just wasn't feeling well. And you would think someone that obese has a lot of stored energy, and they have, but they can't access the energy.
That's right. That's right.
And so I was just unhappy. I was tired. And then I had this moment where I thought, if I continue like this, I'll have maybe 3 years tops.
Wow.
Because with all those conditions. And so the thing is, if you try over and over and over to follow advice that's just bad and it doesn't work, and then you are blamed, you lose hope. And that's what I did. I had lost hope.
Wow, so sad. I love the way you said that people that are overweight, they have lots of energy. It's just not accessible. And somebody you and I both really look up to, Dr. Jason Fung, he explains it really well. Like, you have your fridge on the main floor. What about that deep freezer you have in the basement? You might not go down there very frequently. You might forget it's down there. You might have an entire deer or, all kind, like a quarter of a cow down there. But, if it gets buried under a bunch of boxes and gets all dusty, like, you have the food is in your house. house. It's there, but if it's not accessible, it might as well not be there. And so people that are overweight experience this phenomenon where they have the energy, but they keep packing more and more and more of this energy on because they're not understanding, they're not told how insulin works in the body and how insulin resistant works.
Yes, exactly. And what really frustrates me about this is that the doctors, or most doctors, don't understand insulin resistance. They will not test for insulin resistance, or they will not test for hyperinsulinemia. So it's I have a lot of built-up anger towards some of my doctors, not all of them, but yeah, if they would understand it better, most people would be better off. They could diagnose many diseases way before they develop. I mean, insulin resistance has so many symptoms. It's skin tags. It's the darkening of the skin, like early signs. The weight gain is an early sign. Those people should all be tested for insulin resistance. In women, then PCOS, that they can't have a hard time conceiving. Then, of course, the cardiovascular disease, the liver disease, the kidney disease, liver disease, I already said. Those are all symptoms with the same root cause.
That's right.
I don't see how people don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult because we've siloed everything so much. It's like, just like Dr. Ben Bickman writes in his book, Why We Get Sick. Like they look like all these different, diseases, different manifestations that you need different experts to see. But what you're looking at is branches of the same tree. You mentioned root cause. It's all coming from the same thing. You wouldn't imagine that one thing would be causing all of these different problems for people. And it is so sad. I've heard you talk about this before, and I'm not sure exactly where in the time frame this fits in, but you also had a prescription for Oxycontin, I believe, and had a really tricky time with that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, OxyContin, oxycodone, or even in Tylenol 3. So everyone who thinks Tylenol 3 is benign, no, it's not. It's very habit forming. With my arthritis, with the inflammatory arthritis, I was in a lot of pain. So my knees, walking stairs, basically just walking to the sink, and I was drenched in sweat. And so this was going to help me with pain. And I was on it, one in the morning, one at night, about 12 hours apart. But as it is so habit forming, it would work for a while, and then I would just go off the serotonin, I think. It's high with that medication, and then it falls off. And then it's not that the pain is getting all of a sudden worse, but it's a different kind of pain. It's this addiction. And so they said, oh, no problem. You're going to subscribe it so you can take it 3 times a day. And so the fall off was a little shorter, but I took half more of that medication. And I did actually feel like a junkie, but not knowing that this medication is synthetic heroin. But I did feel like a junkie, and I was. I didn't go on the street and bought more, and I didn't take more than prescribed. And as I was getting used to Imuran, it dampened down the inflammation enough. And then the doctor said, okay, now you can get off OxyContin. And knowing that, well, I had a breakdown right there. And she said, no problem. I'm going to de-prescribe as you wean off it, and you can take it as long as you want, and we're going to go at your pace. And so that's what I did. I reduced it on a schedule. And interestingly, the last tablet was the hardest to take because I knew it was going to be the last one.
Yeah.
I quit smoking, and that was relatively to OxyContin was easy. And the next thing I quit was sugar. And that I'm still struggling with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very difficult for sure. Do you remember what year-ish it was when you were taking OxyContin?
That's a good question. Probably 2005.
Okay. So this is still kind of the
Yeah.
years where OxyContin was believed to be completely safe. Doctors thought they could continue to prescribe more and more and it wouldn't develop any issues. We know now with all the lawsuits and the Sacco family, everything that's come out kind of since then. 2005 would have been the time my mom was very sick with cancer and she was taking it as well. I remember we had a house cleaner that was stealing them and we found out, and I couldn't understand why like the person was stealing. Like to me, it was just another medication. Maybe it was just like Advil or something. You know what I mean? So I didn't know what the big deal, like why somebody would steal it. And then later on, you learn like how bad it is. Yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, I remember also like in some of the worst days that my mom would have her pain, the doctors would literally tell her that if she was in enough pain, she could take the pill and actually chew it so that it would release all of its, it was a time release one. So it would release everything really soon. Like that's not great. That can't be good for you.
No. And most people who don't even know what it is, they get it prescribed for some knee pain or some surgery. And the thing is with addiction, it's formed in your brain. The path is there. And then any substance will follow the same path. So whether it's sugar or alcohol or cigarettes or OxyContin or heroin, they all follow the same path. So you easily add another addiction without even knowing that you're getting addicted. So that's the tricky thing. Addiction is a lifelong chronic disease. But the good thing is you can put it in remission for life.
Yep.
It's not easy, but you can.
Yep. Not easy, but you can for sure. Now, when you're taking OxyContin, from what you remember, are you totally there? Do you understand how you feel and you just have less pain, or is it more you're kind of like in a daze?
No. I was getting used to the dose, and it didn't have the effect like I would say that if you drink alcohol and drink way too much, then you won't remember stuff. But this one, I was used to the dose. So if you have an alcoholic who's used to a very high dose, they will have all their mental faculties. They wouldn't be affected by what they drink. If one of my kids would have taken my dose, I think they would have been knocked out.
Yeah. Wow.
And they might not even have survived. I don't know. So I was on a high dose, but I was there. At a different time, I was put on gabapentin for shingles. And this is completely unrelated. I'm just using it as an example. After a week or two, I started slurring my words. And then I thought, okay, so this is not good. And gabapentin is also habit forming. So I weaned off it and I got rid of all my symptoms anyway. So that was okay. But OxyContin didn't do that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I this far into my life, I haven't picked up a heroin habit. I've never taken OxyContin. So interesting to learn from you what that feels like. So okay. So again, skipping ahead to where you felt like you maybe only had 3 years, your health is completely deteriorated. You've been diagnosed with so many different things. You've gone through the ringer. At this point, it is. You have tried, right? You have tried to reverse your health. You've listened to the doctors. You have done the diets. I'm assuming you've tried the exercise. Like it was not for lack of trying that you got to that spot, correct?
Yeah. So with the exercise, when you lack energy, I mean, you have it in your body, but you can't access it. You just cannot get yourself to exercise. It's one thing is at over 300 pounds, it's really a burden on your joints. And you also lack the energy and the motivation to do anything. It's so cruel to expect overweight people to exercise and then tell them, well, if you don't exercise, then obviously you can't lose the weight. It doesn't work that way. You have to get to a point where you want to exercise, where you want to move.
Yep.
So, that didn't work for me. I really had to had this epiphany that if you don't change, you're not going to be there to see your grandchildren. You're not going to see your kids graduate. Well, so that was in 2019. My oldest graduated in 2018, the second in 2020, and the last one now 2023. But I want to be able not only to see grandchildren and see them grow up. I want to be able to play with them too. Yeah. I want to have fun with them.
Yeah. So what pulled you out of what you would consider kind of your rock bottom? Like, how did you find different information? And was it difficult for you to believe?
Um, it would have been probably difficult to believe if I hadn't been at that low of health. So what happened the week before? I my sugar levels went out of control. I was, like I said, diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. My A1C was 8.5. I was on insulin. I had no control. I mean, 8.5. That's a bad A1C. It's not a good prognosis. And then my sugar levels went completely off the charts. I was in the high 400s for a week straight. Every time I checked, it was in the high 400s. And I thought, okay, though, that's not good. And it's so hard. We've before said with OxyContin, can you think straight? Like with sugar levels that high, you can't think straight. And then in the middle of the night, I thought, no, I need to inject insulin. And well, I was on long-acting insulin, but that's long-acting. You can't just inject a bolus of that. It won't help bring the levels down. My son is type 1 diabetic. So I went into his room 3 a.m. ish around and asked him, like, I need your insulin and I need a syringe. And he just gave it to me. I did a calculation in my head, like, this is how high my sugar is. This is how low I wanted to go. So added up the numbers, drew up the insulin, did the shot. And then I thought, maybe it's too much. So I contacted a friend in Germany. He was on his morning commute. And he said, well, let's see. First of all, don't go to sleep, and let's see. And then he said, no, it sounds like a good calculation, and so you don't fall asleep, watch Dr. Stephen Finney. And here we are. I watched a 2-part series with him explaining how keto works and why it works, 2 hours. And it made complete sense. I don't know. Keto is right in the title. I didn't see it. I might have rejected it if I had seen it, and but I didn't. And as the lecture went on, I obviously knew it was about keto, but it already made sense. And I was looking for a way out. I was looking for a solution, and I'm just now that I'm saying it, I'm getting goosebumps because this is what gave me the hope that I needed at that moment. And next day, I went to my husband and said, "Oh, I'm going to go on keto." And he said, "No." But now it's been 4 years, so a lot has changed since then. And yeah, I would never go back. I will never go back on a sad diet like the standard American diet. I will never go back. I wouldn't even go Mediterranean or anything. Certainly not vegan. So
Yeah. Yeah. If I could give a taste of what that would feel like and give that to everybody like walking around on the street, this is how you could feel. Yes, it's going to be difficult in the short term, but what if you could feel like this? Like if you could put that in a pill and give it to somebody just to experience that for a few hours. So few people I've ever met are ever willing to like go back to the way they were living before, because it's just the lights come back on. You just feel amazing. All this pain and suffering and all the side effects from the medications and the procedures, it all just like wonderfully, magically just kind of clears up. And it's not magic. It's just you're eating the right foods. You learn the truth and all of a sudden you start getting better. That's amazing. What a cool experience.
that was it was like that for me. It was like a switch was flipped. I felt better immediately. I knew not a lot about keto, but I knew about the keto flu. So I drank Gatorade sugar free, like my life depended on it. And I think so. So I never had the keto flu. I never had to deal with that. I just had to deal with not just had to deal. I just had the benefits. The brain fog was gone. The fatigue was gone. I just felt so exhilarated. It's hard to describe. You're right. Once you have that, um, and so this is one of my mantras: nothing tastes as good as healthy feels.
Mm.
nothing could convince me to go back and eat like a piece of cake just to reward myself. Because one thing I had learned, that every time I did that, I fell off the wagon, and that was not going to happen again. So yeah, I will never go back on that diet.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. Okay. So we're going to get back to your story here in a second, but I'm going to ask you a very big question. We're going to take a little bit of divergence, but I'm going to take advantage of you and your coaching skills. Since you're doing coaching and helping people, you have a wonderful way of explaining certain things that to me make a lot of sense and make things seem really easy. So you mentioned type 1 diabetes, which you've been aware of with your son. You mentioned type 2 diabetes. We've talked about blood sugar. We've talked about insulin. We talked about insulin resistance. Can you explain what is going on as far as blood glucose, insulin resistance, especially in the context of type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes? Because I think most people are still kind of confused about this and they don't understand what the difference is between type 1, type 2. Why do both need insulin? What's going on there? Can you give us a good explanation of those things?
Yeah, so many people think when you're type 2 diabetic and once you go on insulin, that means you're type 1 diabetic, and that's just not true. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. The insulin, and everyone needs insulin, is produced in the pancreas. And the pancreas, or more specifically the islet cells in the pancreas that produce the insulin, are destroyed. So these often in childhood, kids find themselves without any insulin. So their blood sugars just shoot straight up. And when they are diagnosed, they're usually very thin. They eat as much as they can because they're starving, but there's no insulin to get the nutrition into the cells or the glucose into the cells. So I remember my son eating 2 burger patties, and those were like huge ones. I could only eat one, and I was a good eater. So he ate 2, and he still wanted another one. And also he was thirsty all the time. So he had like very all the signs of diabetes, but I didn't know about them. And so that's type 1 diabetes. The pancreas or the islet cells die, and they stop making insulin, and you have to go on insulin. Otherwise, you won't survive. And there's no cure for type 1 diabetes. You have to be on insulin. You can manage type 1 diabetes great with keto or other things, but you have to know what you're doing. Type 2 diabetes is a disease of too much insulin. So instead of no insulin for the type 1, the type 2s have too much insulin. And but the insulin isn't doing its job anymore. The cells who should, when insulin knocks on the door and the cells should listen, they don't. So the body makes more and more insulin for the cells to take up more glucose, but the cells are full of glucose and they say no. And so this is why sugar levels then go up in type 2 diabetics. And eventually, when the pancreas is at max capacity, it cannot make any more insulin. That's when they have to start injecting insulin. But the mechanism is completely different. One's an autoimmune disease and the other one's a metabolic disease. And the good thing with the metabolic disease, you can turn that around by eating no sugar or less sugar, and by not eating as often to give the pancreas a break. And that's basically how I got off insulin. So when I started keto, I was on 50 units, 2-GO, which is a long-acting insulin. And I was able to reduce it greatly, but then my sugars went up again. So when I started intermittent fasting, that's when I got off insulin in 2 weeks. And I've been off insulin since.
2 weeks.
Yes, I was 6-7 months on keto, and I was on 50 units of insulin. And I thought, who cares? My A1C is 5.2. I'm good. I'm golden. But that's just not true. If you're insulin resistant, you're still doing damage to your cells because the insulin is still pushing in the glucose. And I thought, oh man, how I'm doing all this and I'm still doomed. And then I found Dr. Jason Fung. And he has a 6-part series. It's called The Etiology of Obesity.
Yeah.
And it seems unrelated, but that explained why I should fast, and how I should fast. And it's basically just skipping breakfast. So it's not like people were starving and not eating. It's not true. I'm just skipping breakfast.
It's so simple. Like anybody could start doing that. And the way he explains it is wonderful. The way you just explained it in 5 minutes tells me that you understand more about these diseases than probably most medical professionals who are treating actual patients. Like if you sit down and think about what you just said, type 2 diabetes is a disease of too much insulin. So let's treat type 2 diabetes by giving people more insulin. Really?
Obviously.
Really? Okay, so like if alcoholism is a problem of too much alcohol, you wouldn't tell somebody to get a buzz that you need to drink more liquor. You need to have a stronger liquor. Like I don't know how people don't see this.
But when you look at it and someone is an alcoholic and he starts trembling and then he drinks alcohol and the tremor goes away, it looks like it's working, but it really isn't. And anyone that have a brain can see that. But with glucose and insulin, they don't.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's a huge problem because you can't go onto every street corner and find Oxycontin. I don't know how to buy heroin around me. But as I explained to our mutual friend, Tia Reed, like I can find sugar everywhere. I can go to a hardware store and find sugar everywhere. Like it's so ubiquitous and inexpensive and easy to find. That's a big problem.
You'd be hard pressed to find food that doesn't contain sugar.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. It's like if you go to every street corner and find cocaine, we'd have a big problem on our hands. And that's basically what we've created. Wow. Well, your story is amazing again. Tell us a little bit more about some of your results as you were recovering things, getting off of insulin. That's amazing. You obviously lost a bit of weight. What other things did you see improvement with?
So, well, with the weight loss came also my drive to want to move. I did probably over exercise, and that might have caused some more flares. But I'm able to go places. I'm able to be on my feet. I'm able to go to the low carb conferences and enjoy them. I don't have to wear a seatbelt extender anymore. When I go to the restaurant, I'm not wedged into these booths, and I see my kids sitting there and they have like this space, and then I'm sitting there and the table is pushing on my belly, and actually that much that I feel slightly nauseous, but that still wouldn't keep me from eating the meal. But those are real restrictions. I find often in diabetes groups, people will say, oh, no, I could never eat keto. It's so restrictive. And I have to say, going to the sink and being drenched in sweat, that's restrictive. Not being able to do what you want to do is restrictive. Being in pain and fatigued or like just dead tired all day is restrictive. Being in a wheelchair or bedbound or bedridden, having to depend on others to care for me, that's restrictive. And they say, "Oh, cake is life," and no, it's not. It's going out and having fun. That's life, not cake.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I can very happily eat ground beef and steak and eggs for the rest of my life, and I don't feel like it's restricted. If you looked at the number of foods I consume in a day, it's not very many. I don't change it very often, but it does not feel restrictive whatsoever, given the energy that you feel, the liveness, the lack of fatigue is such a big thing. The brain fog, like you explained, to have those things like drop out, it's amazing.
It's also convenient. Because when I want to eat, I just grab a pack of hamburger from the freezer. I put it on the, if I want to eat fast, I put it on a warm bowl and I cook it right away. But it's so convenient because I don't have to worry about making dinner plans. I don't have to worry about all that. I just warm up beef. That's it.
It's so great. And it's inexpensive as well. Like I tell people like how many eggs I eat in a day and they're like, whoa, but eggs are so expensive. I know the prices on eggs have gone up. Like, how do you afford it? And it's like, it is a few dollars a day. It does not cost very much money and it's absolutely delicious. And you just never get sick of some of those foods. I've been so excited to ask
I'm getting mine for $4.50 a pound, not a pound, like a dozen.
Yeah.
And if I ate just eggs, I would eat a dozen, and that's $4.50 a day. So that's not expensive.
It's not
like
expensive.
a latte macchiato or something. Way more sugar would be more expensive. No nutrition.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Like, yeah, maybe prices have gone up a little bit in the last few years, but it's still not price prohibitive for anybody to eat this way. It's a few bucks. It's great. Okay, so you started eventually working with Dr. Ken Berry. I love this story. Tell us how Ken Berry helped you get into coaching other people.
Yeah. So pretty early on in my journey, I followed him. And that was a godsend because his advice is solid. I followed others, and sometimes they're really wrong about stuff. But his advice always turned out to be solid. And I followed him. I joined his group, and eventually I said, how am I ever going to repay you? I think in one of the lives. And he picked up that question, and I said, Roxana, if you want to repay me, spread the word. Just that. I thought, oh, okay, I can do that. So I created a Facebook group, and I then as that grew, and I became a power admin on Facebook, and they offered the certification as a community manager, and that funny enough, this is what got me on Twitter, and on Twitter I'm having so much fun. So yeah, and eventually he created his Proper Human Diet PhD community on Mighty Networks. I joined that. And now I became one of his coaches. In the network, there are like 9 or 10 coaches. And we all have our coaching group within the network. And that's pretty amazing too. So yeah, from this challenge, and I'm sucker for challenges, spread the word. This is where it went. And in the group, like as you mentioned in the beginning, we have, I think, 16,000 members now. And I get a lot of private messages. And at times they were just getting too much. Like I would be in conversations for an hour or two with multiple people. And I said, oh, like, okay, the group itself is free, but I have to be mindful of my time. So if they want my advice, then they have to book me as a coach.
Very, very reasonable. Yeah, I love that story. It's a very Dr. Ken Berry type of answer, too. I would expect he would say something like that. He's another doctor that had to suffer enormously himself before finding the truth, and now he shares his message with everybody. And like I said, every conference that you and I are at, that he's at, he's got this like tail of a line of people like waiting to thank him.
If you look for him, just look for a lot of people in a
He'll be at the end of that line for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so we mentioned 2 separate websites that you now kind of run and manage with your coaching business. What are the similarities and what are the differences? And yeah, how has been the coaching business for you?
So the first website, and that's the first, not the first one I built, but the first one of mine that I made, is about insulin resistance and how to reverse it. It has videos that I find most important. It has a section for Dr. Berry, Dr. Fung, Dr. Georgia Eid, and Michael Eads, and then a few others, like important videos, Gary Taubes and Nina Teicholz. So it has then information, some science articles. I need to update those. And it has a weekly blog. And those blogs are basically my rantings. Then the person I'm doing this is my business partner, Joy. She's writing blogs, and then we have people writing guest blogs, and we have book excerpts. So one of them was by Sam Apple, his book, and a few others. It's been around since 2021, I think June or so. And then I have the coaching website, which I built when I started the coaching business. And that was maybe a year or a year and a half ago. And that just tells what we do, what I'm certified in, and how to book an appointment. That's just, and it's obviously linked to the reversing insulin resistance side. So, yeah.
Yeah, your websites are really well made and there is tons of helpful information there. We also read out in your introduction lots of different certifications. What was your favorite certification to do, or maybe what are you doing now with your certifications, and what were some of the highlights that stood out to you?
So I thought when I do want to take this keto coaching business seriously, I need to be certified. I can't just go out and say, so this is what I did. This should work for you. I should really know about the science. And I started with Nutrition Network, obviously because they're tied to Low Carb USA and the Symposium for Metabolic Health. And I took one or two courses. Then I won a course, which was awesome. And then I learned about the Metabolic Health Practitioner. And I thought, okay, I have most of these courses, so I'm just going to tag a few on. And then I was certified as a Metabolic Health Practitioner. And then my friend Tia said, you should do the coaching course. It's a coach practitioner course, also offered through them. And that was pretty amazing because it was weekly lives, Zoom meetings, just for the group of us. And then it came with homework. We had to write essays. So there was a lot of science in that. It wasn't easy because they didn't say like use this, and this study. We had to find these studies ourselves and then write the essays. So that was pretty cool. And then I started primal coaching. When was it? I think in March or February. And I'm almost done. Like 2 more weeks, and I will be certified with that. And well, if I pass the test, but I will. And so these certifications lend a little more credibility to what I do, and they also provided the knowledge that I need to help not just people who are exactly like me, but who have other issues as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. I saw on your website that you also have a page for testimonials and client stories. I purposely didn't go look at that because I wanted to ask you personally, what are some of your favorite kind of stories of people that you've helped? It could be somebody you've helped this week. It could be a major story, maybe something a little bit more minor, but what are some of the first ones that come to mind as far as your favorite stories of helping people with their health?
So I don't have like one certain thing, but when I see them telling me, well, you really changed my life, or I followed your advice and now I'm here and I was there. Like these are the things that make me like gulp. And yeah, I wouldn't have like one. Maria Emmerich, for example, she has probably a book full of comparison pictures, and I don't have that because I don't have that many clients. But I have most of my testimonials come from my group and or those that I get on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's amazing. What about with your own health journey? What are you looking to continue to accomplish as you are healing from so many years of poor health? As everything is continuing to improving, what other things would you like to see as you continue?
So I was in a weight store for 2 years, and that was pretty frustrating because I could not pin down what the problem was. I was eating ketovore slash carnivore-ish. I wasn't eating any processed foods. I just couldn't pin down what the problem was. It turned out it was my thyroid, and it annoys me kind of because I missed it. I went to Own Your Labs, and I had all my labs drawn, so I should have seen it, but I wasn't cold all the time, and that just put my blinds on. Once I realized that I was severely hypothyroid, not only a little bit, but almost critically low for the T4, I increased my dose right away of thyroid medication. And that's when I started feeling better. And that's when I started losing weight again. And I just want to say, anyone who wants to lose weight, don't get a prescription for thyroid medication and just willy-nilly take it. It has to be your issue. So yes, going forward, I missed 2 years in which I didn't lose weight. And well, that's that. So going forward, I want to lose about 50 more pounds, 40, 50 more pounds. And I want to get rid of the inflammation. That's why I'm trying the line diet right now to see if I can get rid of the inflammation. I'm about 3 weeks overdue for my flare. So right now it's working, and I'm trying to drag that out as much as I can.
Yeah.
And the other thing I need to worry about is lipedema. It's something I didn't even know that there was such a thing. But I heard Siobhan Huggins talk about it. And she said, if you have fat that feels grainy, like a rice texture, then you have lipedema. And yeah, of course I have it. So
Wow. Well, her work is amazing. She is such an angel, and she does such a great job getting the message out there and building awareness. I found the slides from Gary Taubes' presentation this year at the Metabolic Health Symposium to be very, very interesting. It was like photos from like 100, 150 years ago, people gaining fat in very interesting places. I've never seen photographs like that.
I was kind of shocked. Someone on the upper part of the body looking thin, and then the legs just like really wide. And they just made this point that we cannot decide where the body stores fat and how much. And we cannot decide where to lose weight. So people who are concerned about belly fat, I mean, not the abdominal, the visceral fat, but they say, oh, I need to lose here. Like, what kind of exercise should I do? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, totally. And that was kind of the key point of his presentation is like, you might not see these all the time, but this is definitely not a calorie problem. Hormones are doing something here. It's pretty clear to see. Wow. Well, it's amazing that you're on the journey, and that all of us are on. We're all trying to improve ourselves, and that you have found so much light and healing and happiness, and you're able to share that message. I think is wonderful. I want to just, before we go, just talk one more time. What does it feel like to feel hope? I know that was such a critical part of your journey to finally discover hope, but how has that shifted your viewpoint of health, and how do you use that to help your clients?
I think hope is probably the most important thing that will keep you motivated over not just the first few days or the first few weeks, but you have to have hope. If a doctor comes telling you, well, your obesity is genetic and there's not much you can do about it, but I have the script and you can take it for the rest of your life, which is expensive with side effects. That's awful. But if you go out and share your story and other people see it, sometimes I'm thinking, like, if I had one superpower, it would be inspiring others, because people see my comparison pictures and then they say, oh, wow, you can do that just with diet, like what you eat and when you eat. And so, yeah, it all hinges on hope. That's my experience for myself. And that's what I see in many people.
Yeah. Well, you might not be wearing a cape, but I can tell you that you definitely have superpowers, and that is one of your superpowers. You are such a positive person. I'm so glad I've been able to meet you both online and in person, and I just think your work is wonderful. Roxana, where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and your work?
So what they can do is on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube now too. They can just put in my name, Roxana Soetebeer, and then they find my channels and my handles and everything. Or they go to your YouTube podcast and just look at the links. Yeah. So Roxana Soetebeer, MHP.
Excellent. And then the websites?
The websites are reversing-insulin-resistance.com, and Kendo, it's spelled KENDO-keto.com. And that's how they can find me on my internet web pages.
Okay, perfect. And we'll make it really easy for people. We'll link all of that in the show notes so people can go and find that very easily. Roxana Soetebeer, thank you again so very much. What a wonderful journey that you've had. Suffered tremendously, but come out on the other side and are sharing that message with other people, and especially the message of hope, I think, is just so powerful and very empowering for people. So thank you so very much for everything that you've done, and thank you so very much for coming on our show today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Casey.
It's been an honor. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio. As always, thank you so very much for listening to Boundless Body Radio. I know I say this all the time, but I really do mean it. It has been such a joy to make and produce this podcast and to watch it grow. Our business started in the pandemic in July of 2020, and we started the podcast in October of 2020. So it has been 3 years now. And to see that we have generated over 400,000 downloads worldwide is just simply unbelievable to me. This year in particular has been such a blast to travel to different health conferences and not only meet some of our amazing guests, but also to meet many of you, our listeners and supporters. We really just can't thank you enough. As always, feel free to book a complimentary 30-minute session on our website, which is myboundlessbody.com. On our homepage, there is a Book Now button where you can find a time to speak with us about health, fitness, nutrition, whatever you like. We've loved chatting with people all over the world and many of you out there to bounce ideas off each other or to try to come up with plans to achieve specific goals, or even if it's just to reach out to introduce yourselves, we would just love to meet you and connect with you there. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel if you'd like to watch these full interviews, and also the shorter interviews on more specific topics that are taken from these full interviews. We've gotten really good feedback over there. It's also a really fun way to interact with people who comment. We read and reply to every single YouTube comment we get. So head on over there if you want to start a conversation and watch these videos. As always, if you haven't already, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. It really is the best way to make sure this podcast gets out there to more listeners. We've been able to keep Boundless Body Radio ad-free for 3 years and really want to continue to do so. And so your 5-star ratings and reviews are the best way to support us at Boundless Body and support the podcast. Cheers. Thank you again so very much for listening to Boundless Body Radio.